Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where we bring you stories every week, just like your Nan used to do. Hi, it's me. I'm your mother. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you, or to talk about, a story. This is our review episode. This is our recap episode. This is our Let's Talk About It episode. If you haven't listened to any of Trouble in Party Town, this episode is going to be very confusing. Go and listen to those 3 episodes and then come back. We'll wait. And welcome back from those episodes. We're ready to talk about it. So I'm not gonna do a recap because you just listened to those episodes, so you know totally what was going on. I'm just gonna get straight into it. What did you guys think of this last story we came up with?
I loved it. I don't remember a storyline that worked better for me in 5 years or however long we've been doing this. I just really like this story.
Same. I think I will be giving this story a 9.8 out of 10.
I had decided on 9.1. Oh, I'm sorry. You can explain your 9.5.
No, that's fine.
9.8.
You decided 9.1?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been re-listening through To the Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, and I have been considering what to write here in the new year, right? We're almost a month into 2026, and I've been considering what to write, and I think that this is it. So, yeah, that's how much I think of this story. I like how much all of the story elements have been used. That's one of the things I really like. You know, oftentimes we will come up with ideas and then someone will come up with their story element and someone's idea will essentially fall by the wayside. Like, I had a really cool cat named Darwin who was a big Maine Coon, and he was so cool, but he didn't get any screen time.
I know that was I thought we should have reprised that story just to get use of that cat.
Yeah, which is okay sometimes, but in this one, like, I'm just looking at my little list here of the elements used, like government type, something based on a book you're reading, magic system, villain, unique pet, quartet members, goal, wild card, unique weapon. All of those things have come in great use, in my opinion. Do you guys agree?
I would agree. I think I didn't get my rating. I mean, I forgot we were doing point something, so now I have to figure out inside of a point something, but It would definitely be a 9. I would say as far as congruency and the whole story and its possibilities, I would definitely put it, I don't know what the top 10 would be. I'd have to go back and revisit. I know we've had over 300 episodes, close to 360.
Yeah, we've only been rating them. We've only been rating them for the past, I think, 4 stories or so. So
yeah, I would definitely put it in the top 10, probably the top 5 that we've done. So it would definitely have a 9, 9.5. I'll go between you and Reed, 9.5.
Yeah, my rating. So a lot of the stories we talk about, I think I'd probably put this book down after maybe the first couple of chapters. Sometimes when we make stories, I think, wow, I would watch this TV show, right? Some of them I think I'd go and I'd pay a ticket to watch this movie. Some of them I think I'd listen to this audiobook, and some of them I think I would actually sit down and read the physical copy of this. Right? This is on graduating scales of how much I would how my ratings work. And the last one is, this is so good that I feel like I should stop the podcast and dedicate my life to writing so that I can communicate this story to the people. You know, that's why I'm edging at a 9.8. Because I haven't quit the podcast yet to do it, but I am planning on writing this story, you know. It's not like, how did J.K. Rowling said? She said that Harry Potter just, walked into her brain one day and started to tell her about his life. Same thing with Stephen King and some of his novels, you know. Same thing, there's a couple other discovery writers who kind of, Tolkien writes about that, coming up with this idea and then tracing that idea back to the tree, you know. So it's definitely captured me. The question is it such a powerful thing that it's capturing me to actually write it down? So you said, what? Go. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would love to see it. I know there was aspects kind of towards the end. I think it was a surprise thing to bring in the dragon things, but I think it worked.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you'd have to go back and revisit it. We had one, and I've looked for it. It's one of the episodes we did. I can't remember. I would say probably midway between the stuff that we've done.
Okay.
That would possibly play well into it. I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen to it, right? And the way that it came out, I remember, and maybe you remember this because I know Levi, you remember this growing up. There was that story that because my dad used to like tell stories when we were driving in the car, or like
Yeah.
eating ice cream at Dairy Queen or something, or would be hiking, and then we'd like whatever. He used to do stuff like that. And there was that one with the kid, and he finds the dragon, and there's that orb, and that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I think I know there was one that we did that was like, okay, this could be a possible prequel to whatever that is.
Oh,
right?
interesting. Absolutely, it could.
And where then it's like, okay, if that's like kind of like the prequel to some of this, then possibly. Now, I remember it not necessarily taking exactly all of this, but I think that if it were to be written down, to re-look at that one and see how it would mix in or could be developed into something with this. Because I would say there's some of the aspects or elements that could be, brought together to bring some congruency to that, partial story that we remember as a kid, and kind of part of it that we put together,
absolutely,
a couple of years ago now. But
absolutely,
yeah, that was one of my thoughts on it, anyways.
Yeah. Any interesting inspirations? So for sure, Xanath, the kind of head of the guard guy, his whole thing was like the white cloaks in the Wheel of Time.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So it's not like he was evil specifically, but he was misguided in his search for justice.
And with such an enormous stick up his butt about following the rules that he couldn't see like the bigger picture. That's the way I picture this guy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about prophecy recently because I'm rereading Wheel of Time, but also because, there's all the prophecies of the Messiah in the Hebrew Old Testament, and now we had Jesus of Nazareth. And a thing I was thinking about as I was reading Wheel of Time, and they're trying to like figure out how the dragon reborn, the mythological sort of messiah of the Wheel of Time world is called the Dragon Reborn. And he's going to break the world, but he's going to unite the world. He's going to shatter all bonds, but he's going to save everyone. Everyone hates him, but they hope that he comes because he's going to save everyone from the shadow, but they hate that he's going to come because he's going to destroy all kingdoms. So it's like this, we want him to come, but if he comes, everything is going to be terrible sort of thing. So people are constantly sort of going back and forth about like what this prophecy means, what that prophecy means. And then when the prophecy does get revealed, it gets revealed in like no way anyone could have thought, And so that's kind of what I was thinking about with this story. When Yellen and his group of people are kind of gathering information, they're kind of not really saying prophecy, but they're gathering. It's like if you don't know what something is, you just look at the complete outside of it, and then you have a negative image of that thing, and then you can figure out what that thing is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I kind of imagine Yellen is doing, is that he doesn't have all the information, all the wisdom of the old dragons, but he's just kind of like bumping up against things and begins to kind of, how do I say it? Kind of manifest the expectation for something that he doesn't understand. That's a prophecy. It's a longing of the world. It wants something to be done. And so he kind of bumps up against these things and draws these conclusions, and that turns into a prophecy, right? Without him really even knowing it or understanding it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that was kind of a thing because that's one of the things they show in Wheel of Time, and that's one of the things personally I believe about the prophecies of the Messiah fulfilled by Jesus Christ, was that people didn't understand how to interpret them, but it was the longing of people's hearts that caused certain things to be done in ways that people wouldn't have thought they would be done, you know?
Right.
Like the Pharisees really thought that they were really going to know when the Messiah was going to be here, right? And then they didn't, and they killed him, you know, because they expected it to be in a way that they didn't understand. But anyways, I like the idea of prophecy, and so if I were to write this story, I'd want something to foretell, something for people, for there to be some expectant thing. You know what I mean?
Yes. One of the things that really kicked this story off for me, which really lit up my imagination, and it was, Seth kind of going outside the box, if I can use a tired expression. You know, the story element he had drawn was Pantheon, and after he was going third, which meant he was reacting to my introductory something based on a book I'm reading, and Levi's the
Government type.
the government type. That's right. I was just looking back on my notes. I got a little distracted earlier because when you said that on this notebook that I have, there's 13 recap episodes. So it's been going on at least 3 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But anyway, but what I was trying to say is, so he pivoted to a magic system, and the magic system was cool just by itself. I mean, the idea of fire being used by magicians, wizards, bards, storytellers, whatever, and in this world it had kind of a mesmerizing effect. But then kind of the corollary to the magic system was the fact that fire was not ubiquitous. Like most medieval era civilizations, fire is absolutely ubiquitous. Everybody has to stay warm and everybody has to cook food. And in this world, there was a mechanism for heating homes and cooking food that didn't have anything to do with fire. And I thought that was just absolutely genius. I just loved that that whole thing that it was like used a chemical reaction with these stones, which turned out to be cast off dragon scales, which I thought was even better down the road. But so that we had this whole civilization with fire being just not a deal. It wasn't, and so that captured my imagination. Then, of course, attribution, the whole thing, I was given unique pet, with fire being the core of the magic system, fire-breathing dragon. So I was feeling kind of apologetic for coming up with the, Captain Obvious answer to that one, but I like it, but I couldn't quite with the kid finding the dragon egg in the buried in the ashes and preserved, and then the whole thing about the imprinting on the psychic emanations from a dragon's egg and bonding with it, and that's right out of Dragon Riders of Pern or any other dragon-based stories.
Right,
but I think it just really worked good in this case.
I think stuff like that. Levi, you're mentioning like the Wheel of Time, and if anyone hasn't read it, I would encourage to go and read it. It's a great story. Yes. One of the things I could appreciate with that story in an understanding that sometimes not that it's direct plagiarism, but the way that Robert Jordan used it was a very well use of the story archetypes. Right? Yeah. So it's it has some classic elements that you might find in possibly Robin Hood myths or King Arthur myths or different story. Everything that is in all classic stories brought out in ways in that book that made it its own thing without making it feel like it was copying, but simply. Right. I think it helped that he wrote it in a way that it was like the the Wheel of Time idea, that everything that once was, and so it kind of repeats over again, sometimes in somewhat of the same way as the pattern weaves, right? And it's right, and so it uses those elements in a way where it's that's kind of explaining that's why these things are important to us, or why they play out the way they do to a slight degree, is because it is and I think we used it in here, that some of that idea of that kind of genetic remembrance, or how would we put that?
Genetic memory.
Yeah. But that's one of the things I like with that one, and I think a different way to look at it with stuff. Now, I think there's like direct plagiarism where it's like, oh, you just couldn't come up with like original ideas, or, you know, using elements of stuff because it's universal.
We don't talk about the Aragorn Dragon Rider series, Seth, on this podcast.
I didn't mention that.
Oh, I thought you said plagiarism and using other people's ideas.
Well, I did say that, but I didn't mention it. You mentioned it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the reality is when it comes to plagiarism and things like that is that the only way you get ideas is by having ideas put in your brain. There's nothing new under the sun. So the only thing you can hope for is that you've read enough varying works, you've ruminated enough on things that you are able to combine these separate ruminations in a unique and interesting way that people haven't seen before. You know?
Yeah.
Like anyone who reads my story, you know, the story I wrote, this story, any of the ideas we have would be able to sort of pick apart what kind of books we've read. You know, Reed enjoys spy dramas and spy thrillers, and you can tell that from the way his heroes and his villains are, and a bunch of his story elements, you know?
And historical fiction.
Yeah. Seth enjoys philosophical situations. I really enjoy sci-fi, you know? So...
you know, you've mentioned Wheel of Time, and Wheel of Time is one of my all-time favorite. It ranks up there with, it's 14 books, but it ranks up there in my mind with the greats, the truly greats.
Absolutely.
If somebody was going to be stuck on a desert island for a year and with just a library and wanted to be my friend when they got done with this thing, Wheel of Time would definitely be among the things I would recommend that they read, because I would just love to talk to people about Wheel of Time. But there's no question that you take some of the greatest elements of Wheel of Time. For example, the whole, the Tar-Valon, the witches, they call them the witches, but you know, the
Aes Sedai.
The Aes Sedai, exactly. There's no question that there was, Jordan had read Dune. And
the Aiel and the Fremen.
The Aiel and the Fremen and the Aes Sedai and the Bene Gesserit. But it's just, how could you not? I mean, it's just such a great story.
Seth, have you read Dune yet?
No, I had a bunch of the Dune books, but not the actual like main series ones.
Okay, the first book is on. I have it in audiobook. You can borrow it. So
okay,
you should read it. Yeah, but see, the thing that's so interesting is that you can't read Dune and then say, okay, now I've read the guy who's had the original thought, right? Because Revolt in 2100 by Isaac Asimov, which came out in the 50s. Has the basis for mentats in it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And Frank Herbert, like, famously got inspiration from Lawrence of Arabia, right?
Yeah.
For the Messiah in the desert trope. And then they aren't even the beginning of it, because you look at the Israelites, you know?
Yeah.
Or any other, you know, even African desert tribes that are like terrifyingly brutal and powerful and can survive in what seems to be inhospitable numbers. So that's all I'm saying, is that all you can do is hope to rework it in some way that's interesting.
You know, in the Hebrew Bible, the name of God, the 4 letters that has been translated in the King James as Jehovah, and some people say Yahweh.
Yeah.
But the name that should not be mentioned in some circles, whatnot. And there was a dig here, not decades ago, just years ago in Egypt, and the timing of it, the dating of it, placed it while the children of Israel were wandering in the desert, that 40-year period.
Yeah.
And it referenced the nomads of Yahweh. And that name, those 4 letters in Hebrew had not come up in any Egyptian digs before.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so somebody, 3,000 plus years ago just, chiseled this into stone, to be found thousands of years later, and say, oh yeah, this was happening then. And I thought, well, that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a thought. Now I lost it. A different thought. That was I was just a complete random.
Yeah, I was
tangential
trying to
thing.
figure out how that was going to connect to maybe your other thought that you lost.
Yeah, I know, and it was just randomly tangential to the thought that I lost. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you think about it, just blurt it out.
Okay.
All right. Any interesting facts about anything else you guys want to talk about this? Any interesting subplots you would have liked to seen? I really like how the original king of Party Town, in fact, was able to preserve the country by creating the rigorous party system, and how, yes, it got bloated and out of control, but the rigorous party festival system that was instituted actually made it so the country could stand together as a cohesive group instead of fragmenting off as would a normal country.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting way.
The preservation of not technology, but tradition.
Yep.
Of who they were and where they came from, and what they were celebrating, and constantly to keep in a remembrance of kind of what had happened and what was important.
Yeah. The one thing that I have been really enjoying about the Wheel of Time that I realize I don't have any idea for in this story is a Dark Lord, right? I think it's really important to have a Dark Lord and to have Murdral and Trollocs, things that are absolutely evil that your heroes and your characters can look at and immediately know they need to fight. Dark Friends are a little bit different because Dark Friends, there's a couple of Dark Friends in Wheel of Time, people who've gone over to the Dark Lord who come back to the light. But that's a thing that I had not included. And so how I think it would be structured is the first book would be very dragon light, the second book would be much more dragon heavy, and then the third book you would start to see who it was that was pulling the strings and doing all the bad things. And that's where everything would sort of end towards. Or at least the three arcs of the great arcs of, they can be, I'll join Robert Jordan and have a 14-book novel series. That's fine. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did make an attempt. I got random insert and inserted kind of out of phase a little bit. A villain sidekick that was Weston was a pretty bad guy.
Oh no, Reed. He was very good. Kind of like this bureaucrat, this sniveling worm who's just there, and he just Reed. That was not.
No,
I
think that's what he meant. Was that his character, like he was a bad guy?
Yeah, the character.
I
wasn't saying it was bad.
It sounded like you were saying
he was
that
a bad guy. I wanted to introduce a bad guy just for the point that you had made. I hadn't articulated it to myself as well as you just did. But I thought that our quote-unquote villain would have thought himself as lawful good. What it is.
Right.
Xanath. And Xander was, and I had introduced as my element from the book I was reading is the idea you have wolves and sheep, where you have bad guys, wolves preying upon the sheep, and then you have sheepdogs who just won't put up with bullies. And I saw both Yellen and Xander as sort of sheepdog good guys in this story. One one more lawful good and the other more chaotic good. But I wanted to have with a sinister sidekick. I thought a much more evil element could be introduced, more wolf-like.
Absolutely.
But you're right. It wasn't. It could have. In fact, there could be a whole substructure that would make Weston like an emissary of the real evil.
Right. Exactly. In the same way that, never mind, I can't give spoilers. I was going to give some spoilers for Wheel of Time, but I can't because you're currently reading through the books. Our listeners are currently reading through the books right now, and therefore we can't give spoilers to them. Mm-hmm. But anyways. You brought up Revolt in 2100, and the word that they used that I think the Mentats were patterned after was the synthesists, because you had a society where the corporate structure, you had the generalists, the people that could manage the big picture, and then you had the worker bees that were the specialists that focused in on their area of expertise. And I after I read Revolt in 2100, I was applying for a job, and I was feeling like my interviewer was kind of phoning it in, and he asked me, this tired old thing, well, do you consider yourself a generalist or a specialist? And I said, synthesist. And he looked at me and I realized, what? I said, have you read any Heinlein? You familiar with Revolt in 2100? And his eyes glazed over, and I realized this was really scattering pearls before swine, and I just let it go. I did not get the job. Happens sometimes.
But I'm kind of like, I look back at the guy that claimed the title synthesist, and I realized that was kind of a prideful joke, but I thought a great deal of myself back then, and in the wrong way. And I think a great deal of myself now, but less wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you would like to hear next week's episode, tune in next week. If you would like to let us know what you think about these episodes, how do you think they're going? If you want to be on an episode, if you want us to shout you out for an episode, if you've got a great idea for a story that you would love us to explore, send us an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com or message us on Twitter at @getsbettercast. We will be back next week with a brand new story. Thanks so much, everybody. And don't forget to wait, because it gets better.